Relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Reigning WBA featherweight champion of Mexico, Erica Cruz, took in this weekend's action as Amanda Serrano traveled abroad to the United Kingdom to face then IBF champion Serrano. According to Erica,
feliz viendo quién será la próxima oponente que me dará mis cinturones con los que unificaré.
English.
she watched the fight, seeing who she'd have to unify this division with, in a nutshell.
So she's finally coming around to the idea of boxing Amanda Serrano.
I haven't soon forgotten that Erica Cruz was already offered this fight, and she rejected it. Thus, her countrywoman, super bantamweight WBC champion Jamie Mercado, ended up standing in her place. That was on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Tyrone Woodley.
Erica has made 2 successful defenses of the WBA title since having pried it away from then-champion Jelena Marjanovic.
Long-reigning champion Jelena Marjanovic of Canada. She beat Jelena, then defended it against her countrywoman Melissa Esquivel, then defended it against Jelena in their rematch earlier this year.
What she's been doing, that's what she's been keeping busy with, and unless she schedules another fight, that will be her only fight this year.
Somewhat unrealistic to expect the undisputed featherweight title tilt, the undisputed featherweight title fight between Amanda and Erica to go down later on this year, as there are only 2 or 3 months left in it.
I mean, it's possible, but I don't know.
It's been a busy year for Amanda Serrano. She finally had that long-awaited, long-anticipated showdown with Katie Taylor, a fight that thoroughly delivered, and still found time to unify titles at her own weight in her own division against Sarah Mahfoud this past weekend.
Those were both very important fights for the sport and very important fights for the featherweight division.
The Sarah Mahfoud fight was this past weekend's featherweight unification match. And a match with Erica Cruz, well, that would look somewhat different to what we saw this past weekend with Sarah Mahfoud, because Erica is a southpaw, whereas Sarah's an orthodox fighter. That's one thing that both Erica and Amanda have in common. They're both southpaws, and they both have great engines, but they've
got different base styles. Erica Cruz is your come-forward, aggressive pressure fighter, whereas Amanda Serrano is your textbook boxer puncher.
Erica Cruz's best range is mid-range to inside, where she can get off body shots and hooks and uppercuts. That's her best range, whereas Amanda Serrano is not limited to having to box in the pocket. She's good long distance, she's good within close quarters.
Outside or inside, she can work.
The stylistic advantage that the boxer puncher has over the pressure fighter is that the pressure fighter, handful that they might be, they only have one gear. They really only have one way of fighting a fight, and that's coming forward and swinging for the fences.
The boxer puncher uses that aggression against them.
Because an overly aggressive fighter that's coming forward and trying to crowd them, throwing punches in bunches, gives that boxer puncher that many more countering opportunities. What gives the boxer puncher the advantage over the pressure fighter is the boxer puncher can alternate between being the aggressor and being the defender, whereas
Pressure fighters more limited.
really at their best when they're being the aggressor. Not so good at playing the defender.
Pressure fighter characteristically looks to overwhelm their opponents with volume.
And in a lot of instances, that works for them, up until they bump into a boxer puncher that has firepower of their own and textbook boxing to boot, to exploit all the holes in their game.
That's Amanda.
Erica knows it. Knew it, I should say, when she initially rejected this fight and decided to go her own way. But now that both her and Amanda are the last 2 women standing in this division,
Erica's coming around. She's coming around to the idea that she has to unify with Amanda Serrano.
as long as Erica Cruz stays in character, stays who she's been, and does what got her that WBA title, stays that pressure fighter, Amanda Serrano has the edge. Amanda Serrano has the advantage, but it's the funniest thing.
What is?
Fighters don't tend to stay in character with Amanda, at least not a few of the ones she's been fighting. You know, Yamileth Mercado is a come-forward aggressive pressure fighter, but she made a decision to move lateral, try to fight off the back foot, as opposed to taking it to Amanda when Amanda fought her. You think about Sarah Mahfoud.
Her too.
Fight we saw this past weekend. Sarah often shows a bit more spike than what she showed in this past weekend's fight. She spent the whole fight backpedaling, pivoting and shifting and trying to stay away from the action.
She didn't want to trade with Amanda either. These fighters likely know they can't match Amanda's power.
So they don't try to. They use movement to offset the power in order to survive, in order to not get knocked out, even if it costs them all the rounds, even if it costs them the entire fight. Would Erica Cruz employ a strategy like this, or would she go for the gusto and take it to Amanda?
You know, I do think Erica Cruz punches harder than Heather Hardy. She is perhaps more durable than Sarah Mahfoud.
Good engine, too. She's from Mexico City. That's high altitude. Fighters from that part of the world, they've got great gas tanks.
But there really is a question as to whether or not Erica Cruz would stay in character with Amanda, because some fighters, they don't seem to.
They don't want to. They get in there with Amanda, and they fight completely different fights than the fights you're accustomed to seeing them fight with anybody else.
But hey, here's looking forward to the undisputed featherweight title fight between Erica and Amanda.
Now that Erica's coming around.
Maybe it happens late this year in December or early next year. January, February.
We'll see. Men's heavyweight news, the ongoing fiasco that's supposed to be the negotiations for an Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury fight. You know what Frank Warren said? Frank Warren has insisted that they are still trying to make Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua following a good meeting today. However, he said Fury's lost patience, hence his deadline. Now, what kind of situation is it to where Frank Warren and Tyson Fury aren't seeing eye to eye, but Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn are? As Eddie Hearn said the exact same thing. Positive meetings today.
Progress.
There were various positive calls today between promoters and broadcasters who are all working hard to finalize the fight. There has been no talk of a deadline between the parties, but we are moving at pace to try and conclude the deal.
So like I said, what kind of situation is it where Tyson Fury and Frank Warren aren't seeing eye to eye, but Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn are?
You have to understand that you've managed to bring them both to the table, both Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, both Queensbury and Matchroom. A unique opportunity, to say the least. And if you've gotten that far, why would you kill the talks now? It's not like they just found out that both teams were going to have a meeting on Monday. They knew about that ahead of time. Yet that's when Tyson Fury decided to cut talks off, at least.
That's what he said. That's when the offer to Anthony Joshua expired, the same day that both teams were supposed to meet to continue to iron out the terms.
So why would you pick Monday for the offer to expire? Your team is working on it, aren't they? And you want this fight, don't you? Or was all of this a bluff? Was all of this a publicity stunt to try and offer Anthony something you didn't expect him to accept? You didn't expect him to agree to your terms.
Did you make him that offer thinking he'd say no? Did you make him that offer thinking he'd reject it?
For Tyson Fury, was this really about making a fight, or just trying to make Anthony Joshua look bad so you could sell your own fight that nobody wants?
Because nobody wants to pay box office prices for a Manuel Charr fight.
We've talked about all of that. Now, in spite of the positive conversations that both Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn said they had at the beginning of this week, Tyson Fury himself, by way of his social media, seems to be standing firm on his square that the deadline is up and the opportunity for Anthony is long gone. That's what he's saying. So in a situation like that, where Frank Warren...
If Frank and Tyson aren't seeing eye to eye, can Frank Warren convince him to come back to the table?
George Warren, Frank Warren's son, because they can't force him to fight in a fight that he doesn't want to fight in. No matter what conversations they're having with Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, ultimately, Tyson Fury himself, Tyson Fury the fighter, he has to be on board.
They're saying that the talks are ongoing. Tyson Fury's saying you're all out in the cold, boys, losers, dossers.
And if he's still standing on that square tomorrow, if he's still standing on that square later on this week while these guys try to iron out this deal, the fight don't happen.
They can't force him to fight Anthony Joshua.
Not if he doesn't want to, and not if he's decided to rescind that offer and take back that opportunity. Dillian Veit, who's a common opponent for both on Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua, said Fury's putting pressure on, trying to use social media and being silly. Big fights take time. It's not as simple as sign the contract, you dosser. That doesn't work. But a lot of people just listen to what Fury says
because a lot of people are stupid.
Tyson Fury knows that. He knows his audience, but he also knows that even though he has an audience, it's not a big enough audience to where a Charr fight is a box office fight. In order to sell that thing, you've got to use an angle. And it seems like the angle he's using is he tried to deliver his fans a better fight, but the other guy chickened out, so here comes Manuel Charr.
And a lot of people aren't buying it.
They're downright sick of it, even if some of them don't want to blame Tyson Fury directly. It seems like the consensus, regardless of who you're talking about, people are sick of this playing out in full view of the public eye. Now, if the fight falls apart, Anthony Joshua will proceed as planned to box as a top 15 heavyweight in December on the 17th.
And Dillian White threw his name into the hat. He said he'd be ready to fight Anthony Joshua within that window.
Myself, I'd prefer to see Anthony Joshua versus Zhilei Zhang, Anthony Joshua versus Otto Wallin, over a Dillian White rematch within that time frame. Both boys are coming off of losses. Let both boys get back in the winner's bracket before you match them against each other for a second time.
I'd rather not see that rematch straight away.
Not knowing what tomorrow brings and only being left with what happened today, Tyson Fury has stood firm on his square that Manuel Charr is next, and the offer is off the table henceforth.
Now, perhaps the reason that Frank Warren and Tyson Fury aren't seeing eye to eye is because BT Sport as a network is pressuring Frank to deliver.
You ain't gotta be a rocket scientist to know that Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua is one of the biggest box office fights you can hope to make in boxing. And Manuel Charr is not an adequate substitute. From the moment that Tyson Fury publicly made that offer to Anthony Joshua, the conversation gained a lot of traction, and perhaps the people at BT are pressuring Frank to continue these talks.
Even though Fury himself says that the offer has expired.
And maybe that's why we're hearing two different things from Tyson Fury and his promoter. Or maybe it's just Frank Warren trying to save face. Because the way things are now, if the fight falls apart, it won't be Eddie Hearn's fault. It won't be Anthony Joshua's fault. They're not the ones that walked away.
They never were. They delivered the fight the last time, and Tyson Fury's situation with Wilder is what led to its collapse.
There is a certain level of cognitive dissonance and a certain level of denial you often find when it comes to Tyson Fury's supporters and his really hardcore fans. They like to embellish the truth. They like to ignore.
They do. It wasn't the Joshua people that walked away the last time. It was Tyson Fury's ongoing situation with Wilder that caused the fight to collapse the last time, and this time.
Well, this time, some sort of deadline. Hey, it's not Frank Warren's deadline. It's not BT Sport of Queensbury's deadline. It's Tyson Fury's deadline. A self-imposed deadline.
Neither Queensbury Promotions or BT said that they've got to get the fight done by Monday. Tyson Fury said that.
Knowing that both teams would be meeting on Monday to continue to iron out the terms of the deal. The Matchroom people aren't giving Tyson Fury any resistance when it comes to the split or even the date.
They've agreed to all of that, but you know, there are other elements in a contract. There is more in there, more in the legalese than just the split and the fight date.
Tyson Fury's the one who doesn't want to give them more time to iron out those particulars. So if it falls apart, it really is all on him.
He would be the one to blame in that situation. That's the way it breaks down.
If ongoing talks break down. Just in keeping with the theme of all things Tyson Fury and all things heavyweight, on the heels of Joe Joyce's performance this past weekend, Tyson Fury said, I think he beats Anthony Joshua. I think he beats the middleweight Alexander Usyk. He might have a problem with Deontay Wilder's speed and power, and I don't think he could lace my boots up. There's no shame in that. Now, we've already talked about what a Joe Joyce versus Alexander Usyk fight might look like, what a Joe Joyce versus Deontay Wilder fight might look like, what the trials are, and what the task at hand might be for both combatants. But what about Anthony Joshua versus Joe Joyce?
You can't judge a Joshua fight based on what Joe did to Joseph Parker. It's a different fight.
Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua got different height, different wingspan. They fight differently.
Joseph Parker tried to stay on the outside with Joe Joyce, and he didn't have the height or the length to do that effectively. He looks to have been trying to walk Joe Joyce into a big shot.
And because Joe Joyce measured the distance and measured his approach before shooting that jab, he was able to consistently land it on the smaller fighter, whereas Anthony Joshua, he's eye level to Joe Joyce, and he has the height and the wingspan and the legs that Joseph Parker doesn't have. Anthony Joshua could box more effectively from the outside.
Yeah, Joseph Parker didn't have any business trying to box from the outside against the naturally bigger guy, but Anthony Joshua, he can do that because he's about as big as Joe.
I will say that Anthony would need to approach that fight as lean as he can be. He doesn't need kludgy muscles slowing him down and eating up oxygen in the mid-rounds where he might tire and might start to get hit. Anthony Joshua needs to be lean, athletic, and on the balls of his feet for a fight like that.
Fight the same fight that he fought against Andy Ruiz in in the rematch, except this time he'd have a bigger target, a much bigger target.
A bigger target that really doesn't move his head. He doesn't really slip punches. Joe Joyce has quickly amassed a reputation for having one of the best chins in the heavyweight division, but a part of that is the guy doesn't move his head. He takes a lot of clean shots.
Speed, mobility, agility, and athleticism would have to go to Anthony Joshua, whereas durability,
Punch resistance, cardio, and condition would have to go to Joe Joyce. I think a lot of people out there feel that Joe Joyce takes a better punch than Anthony Joshua. That's how a lot of people feel.
trial and the task for Anthony would be sticking to a game plan for 12 rounds.
You box him. You don't go in there looking to take the guy's head off and expending your energy reserves trying to do that. You box this guy. You stick and move and keep him on the outside because Joe ain't got fast hands and he ain't got fast feet.
Joe, the trial and the task would be keeping the pressure on Anthony Joshua. Get this guy to fade.
You know, Joe Joyce was able to effectively measure the distance with Joseph Parker before shooting the jab to ensure that he lands it. But Anthony Joshua having the wingspan that Joseph Parker didn't have, he'll be able to land that jab consistently. So the most that Joe can do is weather the storm early to tire him out mid to late.
He's going to be on the receiving end of a lot of jabs, though, because he ain't got Anthony's hand speed. Don't ever be fooled. Anthony's got speed for a heavyweight.
No, he's not faster on the inside than Andy Ruiz, and he's not faster overall than Alexander Usyk, but he is faster than Joe Joyce.
He does have faster hands, and he does have faster feet than Smokin' Joe.
So the trial and task for Joe is keeping the pressure on, perhaps getting off some body shots to take this guy's legs away before drowning him mid to late.
It's a very intriguing fight. I don't know that we ever get it. I don't know that it ever happens.
What you have to remember is that while Joe Joyce is coming off a signature performance, this guy's 37 years old. He's not going to get faster.
Anthony's got speed, and if he makes a return to a more amateur style, like the style that he used against Andy Ruiz...
Move and punch, use that jab, keep the guy on the outside. Throw in the occasional right hand, but don't overcommit because this guy's got a chin. You're not looking for a knockout.
If it comes, it comes, but you're not looking for it. What you're looking to do is land that jab.
Punish the guy with it, keep it in his face, and paint his face with it. That's what you're looking to do. It's a more intriguing fight than most let on because they haven't thought about it.
All you're going to get are knee-jerk reactions and one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter answers.
It's a really intriguing fight.